The title is Empathic Globe, the Future of International Aid, and what I thought I would do to start out is to just give us a framework of what we're talking about when we talk about international aid. I mean, there are many, many different types of aid, and I think it's important to when we're having this conversation, to differentiate those. World Neighbors is what we call a international development agency that deals in sustainable development. So we are not what we would call here a humanitarian assistance group that goes in right after a disaster or that deals with conflict areas. We tend to work, as Jill said, in rural, very, very remote areas of the world, but we don't work we don't choose to work in conflict areas. Sometimes they just become that way. So I think it is important to differentiate that there are this sort of very large multilaterals. There's the humanitarian assistance groups, which are the sort of emergency groups, and then there's the groups like World Neighbors, which are more on trying to develop sustainable models. And the other thing I think that is important to remember is that the whole field of development is relatively new in the United States. Of course, we've had missionaries for centuries, but the idea of the United States as a great world power having foreign assistance through the government, and also the idea of all of us being involved is a relatively new one that emerged after World War II, and of course with the idea of the Marshall Plan and the recovery of Europe. And what's happened over the last 20 years is that the United States government used to be the largest foreign assistance source of funds, and that's flipped. So now private citizens are give more money for foreign assistance than the US government does. I thought it would be important to tell you how I came to be at World Neighbors. You heard, I spent most of my career in the former Soviet Union. How did I suddenly get into an Oklahoma-based organization? And the reason I came to World Neighbors is because I love the methodology and it's so effective. World Neighbors has been around for 65 years. We've been in 45 countries. We've helped, we estimate 26 million people. And what I saw in all the years of doing so many different kinds of development is mistakes that have been made in trying to help people, but maybe doing more harm than good. And I think that's something that will come out a lot today in this conversation we're going to have. Some of the important tenets that I think that World Neighbors adheres to and that effective development adheres to is always thinking about how you're going to get out, not creating dependency, asking the communities what do they want, not providing goods, not handing out money or goods, but teaching a man to fish, not handing him the fish, and also being prepared to stay for a long time. One of the big problems with American assistance through the U.S. government is that it's very short term, and so there's this expectation that we're going to get in, give them lots of money, and do lots of things quickly, and then get out. So this is just a little bit more background about World Neighbors and where we are right now. We're in Latin America, and we say LAC, which is Latin America and the Caribbean, because we're also in Haiti. We're in 5 countries in Africa. We're in India, Nepal, Indonesia, and East Timor. World Neighbors is not a one-sector organization. We don't just deal in health. We don't just deal in agriculture. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the main thing is, and I think this is also something I hope we'll talk about, which is how do you create effective change in communities, and training and education are definitely the way to go. I mean, one of the big challenges for any group, for anybody who's doing international development, is that the world is such a volatile and changing place. And I've been with World Neighbors for 2 years now, and we've had the horrible earthquake in Nepal, the Hurricane Matthew in Haiti that just happened, 2 coups d'etats in Burkina Faso. I mean, 2 weeks into my job, they were calling me, asking me what they should do in Ouagadougou, and I said, lock your doors and let's pray. And if it gets really bad, we'll helicopter you out of there. A lot of horrible terrorist attacks, El Nino, which is not discussed that much, but is actually having more of an impact than the natural disasters that you hear about all the time. And of course, every once in a while you do hear about the horrible man-made disasters, like what we saw about in Delhi recently. And in my time with World Neighbors, we've had a really big crisis with the effects of slash and burn agriculture creating terrible, terrible pollution. One of the things that I wanted to talk about just very quickly in my time is what I've found is out there in these rural villages, there's incredible innovation going on. And one of the ways that it happens is by people having some resources that they feel are their own. And what we do, and it's happening in a lot of organizations, is instead of doing microfinance, we're doing something called savings and credit. So in every community that we work in, we help people to save their own money and to then lend to each other and to invest in their own communities. These ladies built that house behind them. It is their group home building that comes from their saving through just savings and credits. Start small, but it's incredible how quickly it can grow. Worldwide, the biggest killer of mothers and babies is smoke inhalation. I didn't know that when I joined World Neighbors, and I've been in healthcare for many years. So around the world, and not just World Neighbors, a lot of groups are doing what they call smokeless stoves, the gas, the methane gas from animal waste to channel it into homes so that they can have gas stoves. I'm just going to show you many interesting small innovations that change people's lives. Many farmers buy their vegetables. So we're helping people to grow vegetables right in front of their homes so they don't have to buy them. Around the world, women generally, women and children, go out into the forests and cut grass and get fodder for their animals. So World Neighbors, this is the old the old form of getting fodder. World Neighbors has helped farmers, and this didn't come from us, this came from them. We're helping everyone to grow fodder right in front of their homes, to grow more nutritious fodder right in front of their homes. This is a fascinating experience I had in Kenya, where we don't set up clinics. The clinics are either set up by the government or they're set up by the communities. But by World Neighbors coming in and helping to make the linkages between the treatment and the people who needed it, this community was these people were on the verge of extinction, and through these very simple mechanisms of helping people to help themselves, this was a whole room full of HIV positive people who were testifying to their, how healthy they were and what great farmers they are now, and the sort of change that had happened, but really it had happened with their own initiative. I just put this up here because it's another savings and credit group in Nepal, but what's really exciting is to see that we've also helped to break down the caste system and the prejudices in terms of religion. So once these people start to work together and they start to improve their lives, they also start to be less afraid of the neighboring groups. And you see these huge federations of women. Some of them are untouchables now who are thriving and are not untouchables anymore. And also Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, all working together. In conclusion, I just wanted to throw out some questions to you that I hope we'll talk about further, which is, I've told you some of the challenges to international aid, but I'm sure you guys have other questions or thoughts about that. I've told you some of my ideas about how we can avoid dependency, but be interested to hear what you think. I think one of the real questions that comes up a lot in this kind of a forum is, what are the pros and cons of us volunteering, of us going out and helping? A lot of us want to do that. The Peace Corps is a really wonderful institution, and I think that's a real challenge to think about what are the values of it and what are some of the downsides. It's the time of giving. It's Christmas season. You want to give. How do you decide who to give to? I think this is another question that's very relevant right now, as we, it's a wonderful part of human nature to give, but then how do you make sure that you're giving in a place that's really going to have an effective impact? And then, of course, the final question, what can I do as an individual? So I was trying to think of things that both are relevant to what we're doing, but also kind of get at this empathic globe question. So thank you.